Καλησπέρα σας. Απόψε θα παρουσιάσουμε τον Δανό ποιητή Μάρτιν Γκλαζ Σέρουπ, που έχει εκδώσει μία ποιητική συλλογή, το χωράφι, στην Ελλάδα, στις εκδόσεις Μιλάνη. Ακούγουμε καλά. Αλλά θα μιλήσουμε και για το βιβλίο του με τίτλο στα δανεικά livet, Κομμάτι ζωής, το οποίο δεν έχει εκδοθεί ακόμα στα ελληνικά. Το έχει γράψει πρόσφατα, ένα μυθιστόρημα. Η συζήτηση θα γίνει στα αγγλικά. Οπότε, αν χρειαστείτε μεταφραστικά, η ομάδα από εδώ θα σας βοηθήσει. Good evening to everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Sotήρη Σουλιώτη, and I'm a translator from Danish. And tonight we're going to present Mártin Gklazs Sérup, one of the most translated Danish poets abroad, which recently also wrote a novel. We're going to talk about his collection of poetry called Marken, in Danish, the field, το χωράφι, which was translated into Greek in 2019. And also about his book, the new novel he wrote in 2025 called livet. In Danish, it's called, it means part of life. Martin, thank you for coming and being here with us tonight.
Thank you.
I would like first to ask you, we have this book, you know, Marken, the field in Danish, one of your most translated books in all over the world, many languages. And I would like to ask you, what does this word, Marken, the field, mean to you? And who is this field anyway?
Yeah, it is. Thank you very much, Sirius, also for translating the book into Greek.
Oh, thanks.
But it is a long poem, so it's like one poem instead of many small poems. And the reason it's called The Field is because I consider this book in some way to be like everybody's autobiography, more specifically to be like the autobiography of the middle class in the Western world, people who have education and money without being super rich, but also without not suffering, what would you say, like economic needs or hardships of that sort. And a field is, like the human being, a piece of extremely cultivated nature. So the field is also like an image on the human being, but it's also something you have in all cultures, almost, different kinds of fields. So it's also like a universal thing, a field. And then, of course, now that we are speaking English, because it doesn't work like that in Danish, and I don't know if it does in Greek, but the English word, the field, also means, you know, an area, a limited area, and this is also what it is. It's something that is being examined.
It's funny because I had a small impression today that one of the reasons was that also, that maybe it's my interpretation that Marken, the Danish word for field, has a little, it looks like your name, Martin. I don't know if there is some issue in that.
No, I found out when I read about it in reviews in Danish newspapers, because it's like my first name is also 6 letters, and I think 4 of them is exactly at the same place. The Danish word for field is Marken, and my name is Martin. So, for instance, there was one reviewer, a literary reviewer in Denmark, that wrote that it was like an autobiography. Okay. You know, like that it was that I tried to write about myself and very subtly hidden because of this name, and it annoyed me heavily because you know, I spent so much time on trying to be somebody who is not me. But of course, I can see how ridiculous it is. It is very close, Marken and Martin, but it was not, I promise, intentional.
Yeah.
So it works better with the Greek. It doesn't look like Martin, does it? No.
What kind of issues inspire you both in poetry and in prose?
I think that's a very broad question, and I think if the answer needs to be somewhat honest, it should be very specific because it's different from book to book. I don't think that I always write about the same thing or about the same issues, or so it's very different what I'm interested in. For instance, now that we just talked about the field, that is an attempt in some way to try to make like a portrait. This book came out in 2010 in Danish, so like a contemporary at that time, a portrait of the expanded middle class of the Western world, including, of course, North America. So it's of course also a cliché and not possible, but it's also an investigation. Like, so that's what interested me in that book, I think. Also because the field is also an entity. It's not one person; it's many persons that seems to get a lot of its identity from the outside. Like there's a lot of like what the field likes and dislikes more than. And I'm not saying that is better or worse, but it doesn't have an essential core. I don't know if people as such have essential cores, but this field is very much defined by what it likes and dislikes, for instance. So it's so that was the point of departure for that investigation. And for the novel, for instance, it's very much about being a father and a son, and it's very much about divorce, and very much about divorce where children are involved, but specifically in relation to the father's perspective. So that is two very different interests or investigations. And then also, like when I'm talking about like what inspires me or what kind of topics are interesting to me here and now, as a response to your question, it's of course also a lie because in reality quite a lot of different things come together. There's not one single answer, and also what happens when like for me it takes me many years to write a book, and I'm not only interested in one thing in all these years. Yeah.
While both your poetry and prose are typically urban landscape literature, one might say in the field there is a strong presence of nature intertwined with childhood. Is there some conscious contrast between nature, city, and creating bipoles? Like, for example, nature means childhood, purity, tradition, city and society, modern life, etc., etc.
No, actually, I think if there would be like a conscious work around these topics, it would be more an idea of synchronicity, that these things exist at the same time.
Yes.
Of course, urban landscapes and nature exist at the same time, but also within you. I mean, like, what is a human being? What is consciousness? I mean, like, then you are sad because somebody you love died. Then you need to go to the toilet. Then you wonder if there's any more coffee left. Then you think about a war going on, and this all happens at the same time. So, and also, like, in terms of childhood and the different ages, I think you contain all the ages you have in you in a synchronic way. And also, I think, if there still would be one thing that travels through the different books I think very much it's the idea of synchronicity, that the big things and the small things exist side by side, because I deeply believe that is what it is to be human.
Yes. Is it okay that we read some of Martin? You read in Danish and I read in Greek.
Yes, so you can get an impression.
Yes.
I think so. I will go first. We'll go back and forth.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Dette er et naturdigt, der også handler om andet end naturen. Der findes altså andet. 3 kolde drivhuse, deres fugtige industri, gule i tågen på marken. Kan man have det sådan? Som marken, hvordan kan man identificere sig med den, med sådan et sted med en pløjet mark, et underligt åbent rum med en krop uden organer.
Αυτό είναι ένα ποίημα για τη φύση που έχει να κάνει και με άλλα πράγματα πέρα από τη φύση, γιατί υπάρχουν και άλλα. 3 κρύα θερμοκήπια η γεμάτη υγρασία βιομηχανία τους, κίτρινα μέσα στην ομίχλη πάνω στο χωράφι. Μπορείς άραγε να είσαι όπως το χωράφι? Πώς μπορείς να ταυτιστείς μαζί του με ένα τέτοιο μέρος, ένα οργωμένο χωράφι, μια αλόκοτη ανοιχτωσιά, ένα σώμα χωρίς όργανα?
Marken burde motionere noget mere. Den ved det godt, den går ikke i et center, den tager bilen på arbejde. Marken ved ikke, hvornår den skulle få tid til at motionere. Marken forstår ikke, hvordan alle andre får tid til at motionere, hvad de vælger fra. Det er længe siden, at Marken holdt op med at ryge, men det er jo ikke nok ikke at ryge.
Το χωράφι θα έπρεπε να κάνει πιο πολύ γυμναστική. Το ξέρει αυτό. Δεν πάει γυμναστήριο, πάει στη δουλειά με το αμάξι. Το χωράφι δεν ξέρει πώς να βρει χρόνο για γυμναστική. Το χωράφι δεν καταλαβαίνει πώς όλοι οι άλλοι βρίσκουν χρόνο για γυμναστική, τι δεν κάνουν αντί για αυτήν. Πάει καιρός που το χωράφι έκοψε το κάπνισμα, αλλά δεν φτάνει μόνο να μην καπνίζεις.
På en ferie til Paris uden børnene spørger Marken, tror du, vi har en krise? Ja, bliver der omgående svaret lidt for omgående, synes Marken, det havde den ikke regnet med. Marken bliver stille. Må bruge lidt tid på at finde ud af, hvad der så skal siges.
Σε κάτι διακοπές στο Παρίσι χωρίς τα παιδιά, το χωράφι ρωτάει: «Τι λες, έχουμε κρίση?» «Ναι», έρχεται αμέσως η απάντηση. Πολύ αμέσως σκέφτεται το χωράφι, δεν το περίμενε. Το χωράφι σωπαίνει. Θέλει λίγο χρόνο για να βρει τι πρέπει να πει.
Marken bruger alt for meget tid på Facebook.
Το χωράφι περνάει πολύ ώρα στο Facebook.
Marken bruger alt for meget tid på tv.
Το χωράφι περνάει πολλή ώρα στην τηλεόραση.
Marken bruger alt for lidt tid på motion.
Το χωράφι κάνει πολύ λίγη γυμναστική.
Marken tænker sommetider, den er ulykkelig på en mild og almindelig måde, der gør den glad, fordi den tænker, at det er sikkert meget normalt, og det gør den glad, fordi den tænker, at det kunne være meget værre, og det gør den bange, fordi den tænker, at det stadig kan nå at blive meget værre, og så prøver den at tænke på noget andet.
Το χωράφι σκέφτεται καμιά φορά ότι είναι δυστυχισμένο, με ήρεμο και συνηθισμένο τρόπο που το κάνει χαρούμενο, γιατί σκέφτεται ότι μάλλον είναι πολύ φυσιολογικό και χαίρεται γιατί σκέφτεται ότι θα μπορούσε να είναι πολύ χειρότερα και αυτό το φοβίζει, γιατί σκέφτεται ότι μπορεί και τώρα να γίνει πολύ χειρότερα, οπότε προσπαθεί να σκεφτεί κάτι άλλο.
Marken synes, der er for lidt tid, for lidt plads, for lidt sex i dens liv.
Το χωράφι πιστεύει ότι στη ζωή του υπάρχει πολύ λίγος χρόνος, πολύ λίγος χώρος, πολύ λίγο σεξ.
Man kan jo gøre alle ting, gå ind alle steder, åbne en dør, stoppe folk på gaden, kysse dem, slå dem, man kan smadre et vindue, hoppe ud et sted, vælte noget, tage en bil, feje nogens gårdsplads, fodre dyrene, skyde dem, man kan tage tøjet af overalt, slukke lyset, lægge røret på, sige hvad som helst til hvem som helst, afbryde, synge, hvad er det værste, der kan ske, hvad er det værste, der kan ske. Det gør Marken utryg at tænke på.
Μπορείς να κάνεις τα πάντα. Να μπεις παντού, να ανοίξεις μια πόρτα, να σταματάς τον κόσμο στον δρόμο, να τους φυλάς, να τους βαράς. Μπορείς να σπάσεις μια βιτρίνα, να πηδήξεις από κάπου, να αναποδογυρίσεις κάτι, να πάρεις ένα αμάξι, να σκουπίσεις μια αυλή, να ταΐσεις τα ζώα, να τα ντουφεκίσεις. Μπορείς να γρυθείς παντού, να σβήσεις το φως, να κατεβάσεις το ακουστικό, να πεις ό,τι να είναι σε όποιον να είναι, να διακόψεις και να τραγουδήσεις. Ποιο είναι το χειρότερο που μπορεί να συμβεί, ποιο είναι το χειρότερο που μπορεί να συμβεί. Αυτό φοβίζει το χωράφι όταν το σκέφτεται. Martin, you're mostly a poet with a lot of collections of poetry in your biography. It's about 30 collections.
No, around 30 books altogether. I also write children's literature and essays, but only one novel so far.
Yeah. Yes, recently you wrote a very impressive novel. It's called Part of Life. What made you write a novel?
I think that it's because of what I wanted to say or whatever, you know. I mean, like the material in itself could not be, at least I couldn't write it in a poem, I think. I think one of the major differences between poetry and fiction, prose, is that where poetry very often works with stopping time, like, you know, focusing on detail and slow down. what happens in narrative prose is that actually things move around. It works with time very much. What makes a story is time. Things develop, things turn into something else. And part of life, the title part of life also means something like, this is only a part of life, but this is also part of life, and it's that part of life, like that. But it's also like the time that happens in the novel. It's also about many things are happening, but it's also about a relationship, and a child is being born, and then there's a divorce. And so this, of course, moves across time, and also I wanted to show the different, or examine different emotions and thoughts and meanings, that develop over time. So I found the prose form to be the accurate one for that.
Both the field and part of life refer to a specific type of person, the Western European globalized, higher educated middle class, as you said, who travels a lot, often with their work, move comfortably between countries and continents, and experiment with sex, love, and its consequences, families, divorces, etc., and loneliness, and so on. Have you anything to say about this?
Yeah, I think actually that the characters in the poet, if you can even call it a character, but the field is different from what you described now from Milan, who's the main character of Part of Life, in the way that the field is in no way extreme. It's not experimenting very much with sex or with love or traveling very much, the field, at least I try to make the field more like of an average, also politically, and in many ways it's not extreme in any way. Whereas there are much more experimenting going on here, and also politically. The wife of the protagonist, Milan, she's an anthropologist, a forensic anthropologist, and they meet each other in Ghana, in Africa, and her special field is refugees, especially from Africa to Europe, is her field, and they work together on that. He's her assistant at some point. And the protagonist is an art historian who is very interested in historical avant-garde, Italian futurism in particular. That is maybe the only right-winged ism of modern art. Of course, this is very reductive to call it right-wingism, but at least you could look at it that way. And Marinetti, the founder of futurism, was definitely fascist and right-winged, and thought of Italian fascism to be like a minimum a program of the futurism. Of course, there are many other futurists, and it's a big movement, but there's like a political discussion going on here also between the protagonist and his wife, because he's very interested in this crypto-fascist art, and also avant-garde in itself is also very much about breaking boundaries and about all the time expanding fields and experimenting, but also to try to find the proper word, the proper form for the new world, to find out what is going on, but also to create the new world. And she does not have much. She thinks this discussion is partly very theoretical, because she's working with people dying all the time in the Middle Sea, and she also finds it repulsive that he's so fascinated of at least part of these people are fascist. So there's a big discussion. There's a big discussion about that going on. That is also like a political discussion, and both in reviews, but also people tell me that some of them have great sympathy for one or the other, or for none. but I thought, then I succeeded at least in that tiny part for these persons, because I think this is also what a novel should be. I mean, it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about examining these different points of views that even though they preclude each other, seemingly they can exist at the same time, because life is complicated.
So it is a personal life story in a political context. so to say.
Yeah. So I hope it's about many things at the same time. But this is the particular story that is also have some elements of explicit political discussion, I would say, that is also very relevant to European culture.
Yes. The subject of part of life, the life of this creative Western European middle class, as well as the vivid dialogues, the detailed descriptions, the confessional style, reminds a lot of the Norwegian Karl Ove Knausgård, who has been translated also into Greek. Are there any influence from him or not?
No, not at all. Not in the slightest way.
Because he wrote also about divorces and things like that. But,
yeah. And even though I did try to divorce myself several times, actually, it's not about me. As much as it is. I mean, like what Knausgård does, he does, of course, different things in different books, but in the, what is it called, My Struggle or something? Min Kamp, yeah. It's, what he seemingly tries to do is to write about his own life.
Yes.
And this I do not try to. I try very hard actually to not write about my own life.
Yes.
Not because it's a secret, but just because, you can make it more interesting. And
yes.
If I mean, like, because I probably have a pretty plain and not so interesting life. For instance, I'm not a forensic anthropologist. So I had to do a lot of research. I was actually doing I went with anthropologists on work, like I was the anthropologist's anthropologist to see how they actually work, right? So no, and also I was, with the Knausgård, I was a little bit annoyed myself reading it because I can see, of course, that and I did not read all the volumes, I can see that he's a very good writer, of course, obviously, but it's also very much my own life. I mean, like this going to kindergarten with small kids in a Scandinavian welfare society and being annoyed that the neighbor is annoying. And, I thought that was very boring because this is not the reason that I'm reading. I read to get in contact with experiences and ways to think and be that is very different from my own, because I do have access to my own, well, more or less. I think I do have access to my own experiences and my own life and own subconscious and whatever. So I try to make this more interesting than drinking coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not saying that I'm a better author than Knausgård. I'm solely, of course, talking about my political interest as a writer.
Which writers or poets have you been influenced by?
It's very different, because it depends on what I'm reading. But of course, there are a few writers that sort of stay with me that I keep on, reading again and again. And some of them are also becoming better and better, even though they have been died for many years. But for me personally, a writer like Gertrude Stein, the American writer, or a poet like Len Heginian, Italian poet Pier Paolo Pasolini, Finnish poet Pentti Sarikoski. I don't know if I suppose Pasolini is translated, but I'm not sure if, and Stein maybe also. But maybe not Sarikoski.
Pentti Sarikoski, I don't know.
No, maybe but he's very good.
Maybe also that. But of course, there are not so many people who speak Finnish.
No, in Finland there are.
In Finland there are. In Greece, not really.
Not so much. But he's also translated into English and stuff, if you're interested. He's really good. And and then also maybe some of the, what would you say, more classical writers. For instance, I think in particular but it's almost embarrassing to say, but Franz Kafka, because it sounds like a cliche, but Kafka is really an author that for me is continually more and more interesting. Like I reread it and I think like he's becoming better and better, but maybe I'm just becoming older, or maybe I don't know, but he's really a good writer. And this is, of course, for those who read Kafka, this is obvious, but it's the texts are really strong in the way that the same very small texts, like Hans Christian Andersen, the Danish fairy tale writer. I mean, like they have the depth and the level that they can stand the trial of rereading it many times. And actually, the end or the exit or whatever of this novel, this is actually stolen from Kafka, or at least built directly upon his own notes in his diaries. You have like some notes where you can see that he's clearly not confessional. He's clearly, experimenting and exercising. He's training his writing because he's writing about the same seemingly childhood trauma, but in so many different ways. And he starts over again and again and again and right. I also think that if you know the Austrian writer Thomas Bernhard, who's a wonderful and crazy dude, wonderful. I'm sure that Bernhard learned to write from the diaries of Franz Kafka. So also like a diary is such a rich thing because it's so much more than confessional. So Kafka is also, now that I'm moving away from your questions, Kafka is also clearly an inspiration and a source of joy and happiness for me.
I guess the more older we get, the better we understand him.
Maybe, yeah.
You live between Denmark and Italy now, Milano. Does this affect your writing? Are there some issues in your life and work as a Danish writer or poet living in a foreign country? Do you have contacts and interactions with the Italian literary world?
Yeah, it's interesting. I moved to Milan in February because my wife got to work there in October at the university. So I'm accompanying husband, accompanying spouse, and sit there and work. So maybe I think it's too early to know what it does to my writing, but I already did write something that was very particularly inspired by paintings and a museum, something like that. But I don't know in a more fundamental way if it will change my language or my writing, my understanding. This is of course also what I hope. I hope to get more time to when my wife is at work and I'm away from friends and family. I hope that will affect writing. This is very much part of the plan. And then you asked, and I do have some books in Italian also. I have some children books, and there's a collection of poetry called Roman Nights, which was written very much on the basis of it was written in Rome, but this is being translated into Italian and is coming out maybe later this year or next year. I'm not sure.
What about readings, for example, like this one we have in Italy? Do you have some of them also, or?
No, not yet. I have been reading in Italy and giving lectures and stuff, but not since February. Not while I lived there. Also, what I'm trying to do is to learn Italian, but I'm a little bit afraid that I'm too old or it's really slow. But maybe so like this to go to a language school and to be in school again and to try to learn a language. I suspect that will also affect my writing and my way of thinking because, of course, language also always very much shape what you're able to think and feel and understand and see and hear. So, like the more languages you got, the more possibilities to understand the world in different ways. So, I hope that my Italian will improve above the level of being able to order in a restaurant where it is now, very sadly. But I suspect that will also, I can already see things that, this is interesting that they use this metaphor for, for instance, just the metaphors of being in a line, in a queue. It's very different from German and Danish and Italian. And this is clearly in Italian you say that you're standing in a snake. Not like in Italian. In German you say you're standing in a snake, right? So like all of a sudden you see the snake. This is not how you say it in Danish, right? No. And I don't know what you say in Greek, what metaphor you say in
tail.
Okay, so you have a tail, you have a snake.
There is a tail, like the animal has the tail. Yeah. It's called, in English it's Q. Yeah. But in Greek, we say tail.
Yeah, exactly. So just like basic things like that, like just the basic metaphors are of course different. And I suspect that would be something for me to steal and turn into Danish poetry at some point.
Is there something else you would like to add?
I think that maybe you should read a little bit from, if we have time, from the novel. So,
of course,
because it's always, but this is what else should we do? We are talking about literature, like what is it about? But literature is only and very much in the actualization of it, right? I mean, like in the text itself. It can be very interesting, I think, but it's also very limiting often to talk around the work. I hope that the work is able to talk for itself.
Yes, this is what I was thinking also to do. I'm going to read a small passage from Martin's new novel, livet, Part of Life, in Greek, which is situated mostly at the end of the novel, but it's not directly the end. But it's towards the end. Συχνά το σκέφτομαι και κάθε φορά αναρωτιέμαι ποιος από τους δυο μας κατέστρεψε στα αλήθεια τη σχέση μας, αλλά τόσο απλό θέμα δεν είναι για να το κατανοήσεις έτσι εύκολα. Είναι ακατανόητο, απέσιο, απογοήτευση σκέτη, το να μην μπορούμε να ικανοποιήσουμε τις γυναίκες μας. Να το πω και έτσι, λες και ήταν δικές μας, λες και υπήρχε το εμείς, το να μην θέλουν να τις ικανοποιήσουμε εμείς, ότι σκέφτονται κάτι άλλο, κάποιους άλλους, ότι η Μάρτσια κάθε φορά που έκανα να της κάνω κάτι από αυτά που της άρεσαν στην αρχή της σχέσης μας, παραδείγματος χάρη όταν της έβαζα δάχτυλο στον κόλο και 2-3 δάχτυλα στο μουνί και έπαιζα με τη γλώσσα μου την κλειτορίδα της και εκείνη άνοιγε διάπλατα τα πόδια της και μάρπαζα από τα μαλλιά, τα αυτιά και με έσφυγε και έλεγε «Καβλιάρης που είσαι». Τώρα όταν ήμασταν μαζί γυμνοί και την πλησίαζα, εκείνη μου έσπροχνε τα χέρια ή ακόμα χειρότερα, έκανε στο πλάι, γύριζα απ' την άλλη, με μια κίνηση, σαν να το ένιωθα λάθος, σαν να μην ήξερα καν πώς να την αγγίξω, την ίδια μου τη γυναίκα. Ένιωθα ξεφτύλα, απόγνωση, ξεφτύλα, την απόγνωση, τη δυστυχία. Το νιώθω ακόμα αυτό το συναίσθημα όταν σκέφτομαι τα παλιά. Όλα έχουν μείνει μέσα μου, είναι φρικτό. Είναι γεγονός ότι όλοι οι άντρες, ή τουλάχιστον όλοι οι άντρες που ξέρω, και αυτοί που έχουν και καλά σωστές σχέσεις, και εκείνοι με τις κατεστραμμένες, όλοι οι άντρες άνω των 30 που είχαν μόνιμη σχέση πάνω από 3 χρόνια, είναι θλιμμένοι, σεξουαλικά υποσιτισμένοι. Οι γυναίκες που εκείνοι νόμιζαν ότι τα είχαν βρει μαζί τους, είχαν αλλάξει. Είχαν τώρα άλλα ενδιαφέροντα. Είχαν γίνει άλλες. Οι άντρες όμως έμειναν οι ίδιοι. Έτσι νομίζουν. Έτσι λένε. Είναι ξεφτύλα. Είναι για κλάματα. Είναι μαύρο χάλι. Γιατί είναι έτσι? Αυτό όλοι, μα όλοι το σκέφτονται. Όλοι μας το σκεφτόμαστε. Αλήθεια λέω. Thank you very much, Martin, that you came here.
Thank you very much, and also for the reading. It's the first time I hear it in Greek.
Maybe first, but not the last. And thank you very much, all of you. Σας ευχαριστούμε όλους που ήρθατε. See you maybe next time, same place, same hour.
Thank you very much.
Spændende, hvad du kommer til at lære fra italiensk. Du glemte de 2 ting, man siger, hvis du er købt. Ja, hvad er det? Koder, det er også hale, og hvad er det? Filer. Hvad kan du sige? Det er en linje. Ja, præcis. Thank you.
Οπότε μπορούμε δεν υπάρχει η όλη μετάφραση. Κατάλαβα. Οκ. Ευχαριστώ.
ταξιδέψουμε,